Hello, my name is Andrew, and I welcome you to my YouTube channel, Heaven Homesteading.
Do, 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 do.
In this video, we will be concluding the study of creation. The 28 Fundamentals, Part 6C, Creation. Psalms 33, verses 6 and 9. Verse 6. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. Verse 9. For he spake, and it was done. He commanded, and it stood fast. In the previous video, I was talking about the science teacher that had mentioned that God could not exist because matter could not pop out of nowhere. I, of course, agreed with the latter, but that proves there must be a God. He is the one that spoke the universe into existence. Psalms 33, 6 and 9 is a perfect example to what I was saying. The universe around us was spoken into existence by our Creator God. Psalms 104, verses 1 through 7. Verse 1. Blessed the Lord, O my soul. O Lord my God, thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty. Verse 2. Who coverest thyself with light as with a garment, who stretchest out the heavens like a curtain. Verse 3. Who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariot, who walketh upon the wings of the wind. Verse 4. Who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers a flaming fire. Verse 5. Who laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever. Verse 6. Thou coverest in with the deep as with a garment. The water stood above the mountains. Verse 7. And thy rebuke they fled. At the voice of thy thunder they hasted away. Psalms 104, verses 8 through 14. Verse 8. They go up by the mountains, they go down by the valleys, unto the place which thou hast founded for them. Verse 9. Thou hast set a bound that they may not pass over, that they turn not again to cover the earth. Verse 10. He sendeth the springs into the valleys, which run among the hills. Verse 11. They give drink to every beast of the field. The wild asses quench their thirst. Verse 12. By them shall the fowls of the heaven have their habitation, which sing among the branches. Verse 13. He watereth the hills from his chambers. The earth is satisfied with the fruit of thy works. Verse 14. He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle, and a herb for the service of man, that he may bring forth food out of the earth. Psalms 104, verses 15 through 21. Verse 15. And the wine that maketh glad the heart of man, and oil to make his face shine, and bread which strengtheneth man's heart. Verse 16. The trees of the Lord are full of sap, the cedars of Lebanon which he hath planted. Verse 17. Where the birds make their nests as for the stork, the fir trees are her house. Verse 18. The high hills are a refuge for the wild goats, and the rocks for the conies. Verse 19. He appointed the moon for seasons, the sun knoweth his going down. Verse 20. Thou makest darkness, and it is night. wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep forth. Verse 21. The young lions roar after their prey and seek their meat from God. Psalms 104, verses 22 through 28. Verse 22. The sun ariseth, they gather themselves together, and lay them down in their dens. Verse 23. Man goeth forth unto his work and to his labor until the evening. Verse 24. O Lord, how manifold are thy works! In wisdom hast thou made them all. The earth is full of thy riches. Verse 25. So is this great and wide sea, wherein all things creeping innumerable, both small and great beasts. Verse 26. There go the ships. There is that Leviathan, whom thou hast made to play therein. Verse 27. These wait all upon thee, that thou mayest give them their meat in due season. Verse 28. That thou givest them they gather. Thou openest thy hand, they are filled with good. Psalms 104, verses 29 through 35. Verse 29. Thou hiddest thy face, thou art troubled. Thou takest away their breath. They die and return to their dust. Verse 30. Thou sendest forth thy spirit. They are created. And thou renewest the face of the earth. Verse 31. The glory of the Lord shall endure forever. The Lord shall rejoice in his works. Verse 32. He looketh on the earth, and it trembleth. He toucheth the hills, and they smoke. Verse 33. I will sing unto the Lord as long as I live. I will sing praise to my God while I have my being. Verse 34. My meditation of him shall be sweet. I will be glad in the Lord. Verse 35. Let the sinners be consumed out of the earth, and let the wicked be no more. Bless thou the Lord, O my soul, praise ye the Lord.
In verse 1, the psalmist is calling on God and giving all honor and glory to him. Verse 2, God is perfect. He is without sin. The robes of light are in reference to being pure. In Isaiah 61:10, it is written, I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul shall be joyful in my God, for he hath clothed me with the garments of salvation. He hath covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with her jewels. The robe of righteousness that is in the book of Isaiah is the robes of light that the true and faithful followers of Christ will receive when he returns to take us home to heaven. We will not receive them based on our own merits. It is only through the grace of God, the sacrifice of Christ, and the relationship with him that we develop within our lifetime that it is made possible that we shall receive the reward that only Jesus deserves. Verses 1 and 2, like the beginning of the fourth commandment in Exodus, is identifying the authority of God. Within the adult quarterly lesson for Sunday, May 24th, 1992, it states, Psalms 104 is a poetic account, and as such does not cover all the details of Genesis 1. No clue is given in the psalm as to the time taken for the work of creation, but there can be no question that the days mentioned in Genesis 1 are identical with our 24 days, each consisting of an evening and a morning, darkness and light. In our period of history, evolutionary ideas are so widely held and, pro- and propagated the early succession of the week, an arbitrary number of 7 days based on no astronomical measurement, as are the year, the month, and the day, is an evidence that helps to support the verity of the biblical account of fiat creation. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made.
Isaiah 45, verses 12 and 18. Verse 12. I have made the earth and created man upon it. I, even my hands, have stretched out the heavens, and all their host have I commanded. Verse 18. For thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it. He created it, not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, and there is none else.
God created this world not as a whim, but for a specific reason. It was to be inhabited and cared for by Adam and his descendants. Sin and death were not what God wanted for the first parents. Death is not natural. It is written that the wages of sin is death. God did not want Eve and Adam, respectively, to sin, but he had put in place a contingency plan, a plan B, if you will, that the Son of God would come down in the flesh of man and bear the sin of all humanity so that sin and death will be eradicated forever. God, the Son, was the only one that could do so because he is without sin and the creator of all things, the one and only God.
Acts 17, verse 24. God that made the world and all the things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands.
He is the true living God, the one who made everything. Anything that was made by him. He cannot be confined within walls or within a statue that was chiseled by man. The idols that man is worshiping were shaped by the hands of man using materials that were created by God.
Colossians 1, verse 16. For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for him.
God is always in control. He knows the end from the beginning. He knew that there was a chance that the human race would fall. That does not mean that he wanted humans to sin. Every created being has been given free will. For instance, where was the first sin committed? In heaven. No, it was not here on earth. Adam and Eve were not the first. It was Lucifer, the covering cherub. He who of all angels was closest to God. using the serpent, Lucifer, now renamed Satan, convinced Eve into disobeying God. And then she used Adam's love for her to get him to also disobey God. God is in control. It is only through his will that anything is allowed to happen. He does not cause bad things to happen. He does not cause evil people to come in power, but he allows these things to occur, and we, in faith, must trust on God, giving ourselves completely into his hands. Our enemies are also children of God, and God is making an effort to save them. Nebuchadnezzar, for example, was responsible for taking the people of God into captivity. But God sent him prophetic dreams and other messages to work on his conversion. In the end, Nebuchadnezzar was saved, such so that the fourth chapter of the book of Daniel was written by Nebuchadnezzar himself.
Hebrews 1 verse 2 hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the worlds.
In verse 1, it is written that in the past, prophets were the instruments that God used to communicate with his children. In verse 2, Paul is making a claim that Jesus is the Son of God and was involved within the creation of the world, was sent to speak directly to us.
Hebrews 11 verse 3 through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear.
How do we know that the world was created in 6 literal days? The Word of God, the Bible. How do we know the Bible is true? By faith.
Revelation 10 verse 6 and swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that therein are, and the earth and the things therein are, and the sea and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer.
Everything in heaven and earth were made by God. Either he spoke them into being or he formed them with his own hands.
Revelation 14 verse 7, saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of water.
The word fear comes from the Greek word phobeo, which means to frighten, that is, passively to be alarmed. By analogy, to be in awe of. So God, it deserves our respect, our fear, to be for us to be in awe of him, because he is above all. He created all things. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. And of course, I hope you will return for my next video.